Senator Fannin, this is on the amendment?
Yeah, and part of it's on the bill, but part of it is on the amendment. And I didn't have a question until you began to talk about 9-year-olds and how we restrain them. I just happen to have a couple of 9-year-old granddaughter and a grandson, and I know that being restrained in a seat and them having to drive 8 hours to come see me is a difficult, very difficult situation. And it's a terrible thing that we have to make it so restrictive under their safety that they don't want to travel to grandma's house or grandpa's house because they don't want to have to ride under those conditions. So here's my concern about the bill. When I hear of all the accidents that happen about children being restrained, it seems to be more about people that don't have their seats hooked up correctly and they don't have them correctly restrained under current law. Not that we've outdated law, we just not have been able to teach people to hook them up correctly and restrain them correctly under the current law. So I want to do what's best for children and those small children, absolutely. At some point, I think parents have a responsibility to know what's best for their children, and we need to keep government out of it. And for my 9-year-old grandkids and my granddaughters, whoever it may be, for anybody's, I don't want them not being willing to travel anywhere simply because they have to fight all those restraints. Now, if I'm going across town and I live in New Orleans, Senator, and you go across the block to see them, that you may have an issue there. I have a totally another issue with mine because I'm telling you, every time they come, and I just happen to have one that has to drive about 7 hours, and every time they come, they're aggravated because they've had to ride in those seats for 8 hours.
So
Now, yeah, because when you get look, that was fine when they were a little bitty. Look, they droop their head over and go to sleep. They slept the whole time. But I tell you, 9-year-old boys don't sleep, for an 8-hour trip. And I would think very few 9-year-old girls sleep for an 8-hour trip.
Can I read Section 5 for you, sir?
Yeah.
A child who is younger than 13 years of age shall be transported in the rear seat of a motor vehicle when available, in a properly used child restraint system, belt positioning, child booster seat, or adult safety belt that complies with all applicable federal law. So your grandchild would only have to sit in the back seat, not front seat, with a seat belt on because of the issue with airbag deployment. They wouldn't have to sit in a booster if they're 13 and they were.
Well, you said 13.
Size.
I said 9. You now.
Okay, I'm sorry. So.
I mean, 13 is pretty old and pretty good size for the most of them in today's society.
So when you go to a child who is at least 9 years of age, has outgrown the height or weight limits of a child restraint system or best positioning, they also it would be similarly set.
So do you feel comfortable that every parent out there that's going to have a child is going to know what you just read, how to comply with the law?
Well, part of this, obviously, we have antiquated laws that people don't know now. So part of any safety measure requires education. And so part of that, between state police and the medical societies, a part of that would be educating people. State police has also offered that in cases where people are not certain how to restrain, you can go to any of the Louisiana State Troopers stations, and they will show you. And if you don't have proper restraint, they will give you one.
And they do training up in our area, annually for it. It's not always convenient. People always don't do it.
Yeah, and safety, unfortunately, is not always convenient. So I mean, I get your point totally, and I totally respect it. It's one of those things that. When we talk about saving lives and we talk about creating.
So I didn't hear any statistics. Tell me about the statistics from where we're at now. I mean, a couple of questions, and this was for the bill, but we'll go ahead and do it since the amendment will be changing the bill. Tell me what that everyday mom and dad is going to have to do cost-wise and from what they're doing today. I mean, is it going to be a more expensive seat? Is it going to be the same seat and they just have to abide by different weights and heights and and regulations, and we're going to leave that up to the state police to determine whether they fit that or not. That's pretty objective there in itself, but you know, it's pretty loose, you know, in what the everyday mom and dad that gets up every day struggling to get their kid to school and to get to get to work. You know, how's it going to change from where we're at today?
So right now we are running 105 child passenger safety fitting stations throughout the state of Louisiana free of cost. They're located in every region of the state where constituents can come and get free education and installation by a team of over 700 certified technicians throughout the state, medical, law enforcement, first responders. So there is availability to teach people. We do approximately 7,000 seats per year instructing people. Statistics, and I would like to refer to the situation that you presented to me with your 9-year-old grandchildren, and that is that we're going to keep children in the rear-facing mode longer because it cradles the head and spinal cord, and your 9-year-old grandchildren would be in a booster seat. Now, being in a trauma center, witnessing this every day, the problem with not being in a booster seat until they accurately fit on the vehicle seatbelt is that the lap belt, it doesn't have to take a severe crash. It could be you braking very hard. That lap belt compresses onto the abdomen without a seatbelt. So you're talking about kidney, liver, intestines rupturing. And so time after time, we've seen people, children, come through the trauma center knowing that if they were in the more protective category, those injuries would absolutely not exist in these children. So when you look at what does it change today versus tomorrow, seats for several years since the national standards were upgraded have housed children rear-facing much longer, like our law is amended to do. So the manufacturers have the seats out there. They've been out there for several years, as well as the internal harnesses now can go up to 120 pounds. So the seats and the manufacturers have met the need of the national standards. The only thing that I would see is that we're putting children in booster seats longer until they accurately fit on a vehicle safety seat. So we're keeping children in boosters longer. So the number one thing that children are going to do, the most dangerous thing, is to get into a vehicle. And so if we can properly place the shoulder belt and the lap belt on those children with a backless booster seat that could be as inexpensive as $25, we've just cut out all of the pain and suffering and all of the medical injuries and fatalities with that child by simply boosting them up to where the lap shoulder belt fits like it fits you and I. So when we're teaching for the last, I'd say 5 years, we cannot teach Louisiana law. We have to teach best practice because Louisiana law puts us at risk, puts children at risk. So parents turn to this law for best practice and guidance. Are we seeing people out in the communities rear-facing till 3 and 4 years old? We are. It's because we've been educating on this for quite some time. Now we're catching our law up to national standards and putting us with the other 11 states that have upgraded laws.
Is that it, Senator Fannin? Okay.